I'm not going to like throw out any specific companies, mainly because they don't pay us. Welcome everyone to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Being slouches.
Today, we're going to help all of you triathletes pick out the right tri-bike.
And a few you time trialists.
And a few time trials.
Throwing some time trialist specific stuff.
We're going to keep it a little bit more geared to triathlon. I think in a time trial sense, there's some of what we're going to say doesn't necessarily carry over because you may want a much more aggressive setup.
Mm-hmm. 112 miles, a lot different.
112
than,
mile
say,
is a little different than even 40K is a little different. Holding a position for under an hour versus whatever, 4
plus, yeah.
So we'll get to that first. I am Coach Dale Sanford.
And I am Coach Bryant Funston. We are the co-founders of BPC Performance Coaching, where we specialize in helping time-crunched athletes optimize their busy schedules so they can maximize their athletic performance. Every BPC coach is trained in our 5 pillars coaching system that has been developed over the last 12 years through our work with athletes of all ages and ability levels, from fresh off the couch to world championship competitors. You can find out more about BPC by going to buildpeakcompete.com, checking Facebook and YouTube at buildpeakcompete, or all up on that Instagram at BPC Performance.
Bingo.
Bingo bango. Phone.
Yeah.
Go away.
I'll say, before we get going, good luck. Can we get a good luck?
Give us a good luck.
Good luck to all those folks heading to Unbound.
Yeah, we got a good little group going.
Yeah. This weekend. It's going to be
a mix of 100 and 200 milers.
Yep.
None doing the Ultra. The Ultra one. What's the
XL?
The XL. Is that one 360
it's like
350 or something?
50. Yeah.
Whew.
Something like that.
It's a long day.
A lot of mileage there.
It's a lot.
Weather looks like it's going to be like a couple years ago. Hot. But hey, it's not going to rain, maybe.
Hey, fortunately, there's no trees.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Fortunately, there's almost zero shade.
So there's zero shade. Yep. Very little shade. So you're good to go there.
Yep.
Take your sunscreen.
Yep. So good luck, everybody.
Shame time is hammer time.
Yeah. Race starts at mile 140.
Yeah, right.
Get to that start
pacing
line.
And nutrition.
Get to that start line at mile 140.
Yes, pacing and nutrition. Key for long events.
All right, so right now it seems that I get tons and tons of questions about what bike should I buy, what do I need to look for in a triathlon bike. It's compounded by the difficulty of finding bikes right now. So then that alone limits us. So we'll kind of go through some things that more of like some considerations to think about before you pull the trigger on a bike. My must-haves in a time trial or triathlon bike.
Paint scheme's the big one, right?
Paint.
Good.
Paint is absolutely key.
If you don't look good, you're not going to ride good.
Yeah. And then some other considerations on some like accessory type things.
And this is coming from you fitting, especially recently. I mean, you've been fitting a ton of people on tri bikes.
You're
doing five fits a week or more.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of fitting, and it's probably half and half. Triathlon bikes, road, gravel, all that stuff. But the trend that I'm seeing in triathlon bikes is that people are constantly coming in with a bike that doesn't necessarily fit them, or the bike is not necessarily adjustable enough to hit a range that is going to put them in a comfortable position. And given most people these days are doing long course, it's a lot less aggressive of a position because you're holding it for hours.
It's like we said at the start here. There's a big difference between 4+ hours and 50 minutes.
And so when these bike companies are making these frames and the geometries based off of like time trials for like Grand Tour,
your elite level people pushing 30+ miles an hour.
Right.
Where
the geometry,
is key. Aggressive is key.
The geometries aren't meshing. We'll just put it that way with the setup.
You're more age group Ironman athlete versus your elite professional. Even in Ironman, like there's a big difference in position between your elites and your age group folks.
Right. Yeah. So, we'll go into like narrowing down the models, right?
Yep.
I'm not going to like throw out any specific companies, mainly because they don't pay us. They ain't getting paid. So,
I mean, we can't even get a sock sponsor.
I know, it's terrible. So,
nor have we tried, but
when you're narrowing down models, like right now, the big thing is like what's available.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's going to narrow down your list a lot. Just see what you can even get.
Yeah. If you're listening in the future, we're dealing with the bike sellout.
It is June 2nd, 2021.
Yeah.
Post-pandemic bike shortage.
Yep.
It is very hard to get any bike right now.
Yep.
So see what's available and then say, hey, how desperate am I for a new bike?
Exactly.
And that will narrow your list down pretty heavily. Mm-hmm. The other big thing, obviously, is price range. So, a time trial or a triathlon bike. Now, keep in mind, there are certain bike companies that are making triathlon-specific bikes that don't pay attention to any of the UCI rules.
That's a big key, yeah.
Like, they don't, like... So there are a few bikes that are built more for triathlon, but I still find that the geometry is more aggressive than an average age grouper can usually handle.
Yeah.
Anyway, so price range really dials it down too, because on a tri bike you're talking anywhere from maybe $2,500 to like $12,500 on a rig.
Yep.
So that's a big difference. The price range will probably narrow your bikes down pretty heavily.
And in general, correct me if I'm wrong here, but in general, your lower price bikes are going to end up being more adjustable than those upper end bikes.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I tell people all the time is the really expensive integrated, I would consider over-engineered, like super aero super bikes.
Apologies to all the engineers listening.
Sorry,
There's no such thing as over-engineered.
Yeah, sorry, engineers. But they're very complicated to work on. All the integrated parts in the front end generally limits adjustability.
And that's the key factor there.
That's one of the big things that you're running into.
Your position on the bike is going to be more important than the aerodynamics of the bike.
Yes.
From a speed standpoint.
Yes, absolutely.
You make up much more of this frontal surface area than what your bike does.
Right. And not to go on a tangent here, but there are a lot of cases where I've brought people's front end up and they get faster. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it opened their hips up and their legs are actually working
and they can
better.
Breathe.
They can breathe. And also with their shoulders more relaxed, their head and chest actually drops into that space between your shoulders and your elbows, and it closes that hole a little bit more. And that is more aero than having the front end so low, you're reaching for it with your elbows, and now you just have this big gaping hole, like because you're trying to keep your head up, and it's just, anyways, that was a good tangent. So my second big thing is, do you work on your own bike? Because if you do, or if you don't, your options are wide open.
Yep, exactly.
If you're
taking it to the shop.
Yeah, if you're taking it to the shop, let them deal with it.
Yeah.
All good. If you do work on your own bike, it comes down to, well, how mechanically inclined are you now? And how annoyed do you get when you have to dismantle most of the front end of the bike to adjust a brake? Like, or, you know, something like that. Like, personally, that's why I rode a super bike. I won't say which one. I had several versions of it for years. And I finally...
I say just say which one.
Huh?
I say just put it out there. Tell the people what they need to know.
I had it... No, I won't. But now I have another time trial bike that is basic, uses standard stems, has top-mounted, fork-mounted brakes. It's just simple to work on. Mm-hmm. I can adjust it. I can change things really quickly. If something needs adjusting because I'm changing wheels out, that's what I was finding with the integrated brakes. You change your training wheels to race wheels, and now you have to make an adjustment to the brakes, either width or pad position, and it just turns into a whole job. Like I don't know. It got really annoying to me, and I'm fairly mechanically inclined when it comes to bikes.
Yep.
So,
because I still deal with that same problem. So
right.
It's a question of how are you wanting to invest that time
and
to
you
get
have
those
the same bike that I have.
Yeah. Are you wanting to or willing to deal with that time in order to save those seconds? You know, and if it's coming down to a win and loss is a few seconds, then yeah, it's probably, you know, it might be worth it to you. If it's, you know, a matter of 10 seconds and you're not on the podium, then it may not, you know, be as big of a factor.
Yeah. And I'll put this out there because it's worth noting that a lot of these super bikes, they're heavy. Mm-hmm. They're really heavy because there's a lot of extra hardware in them to, you know, and a lot of extra tubing and little fairings and frame pieces and stuff like that. They're not super light. Mm-hmm. They're aero as all get out. Don't get me wrong, but they are.
Is there a place that shows all the different weights of these? I've not seen one.
I don't think the geometry.
Totally a side tangent here, but
yeah.
Hey, if anyone listening has a site where they have the weights of all these, I'd be curious to see.
Yeah.
Just frame weight.
Yeah. Well, that I would say frame for like all the front end typical stuff minus wheels.
Non-wheel set. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you work on your own bike, you know, it just depends on how mechanically inclined you are and how much time you're willing to spend working on your own bike. Mm-hmm. Now, the third thing, because it is so popular now and people, I don't necessarily think people put a lot of thought into it before they do this, which is getting disc brakes or rim brakes. And personally, I think, like, let's just go through the pros and cons here of disc brakes. Pro, disc brakes. Lots of stopping power.
Yep.
In all conditions. Superior stopping power to rim brakes all day long, every day. No questions.
Wet courses?
Great. You got brakes. Mm-hmm. Maintenance. Rim brake wins.
Rim brake wins that one, definitely.
Because if you get the slightest bit of oil, grease, cleaner on the disc or the pad, they will start screaming.
Or if your wheel off and you grab the brake.
Your wheel's off, grab the brake, you put air in the lines. You got to have the lines bled. Cost of repair. Rim brake wins.
Rim brake wins again.
I mean,
weight.
Rim brake wins weight game.
Rim brake wins that one.
Ease of repair. Rim brake wins. I had an athlete that went to St. George, and in the transport process, both hydraulic cables got cut. And
was it sabotage?
I don't know.
We think it was sabotage.
But it bled, it bled the oil all over the pads and the discs and the calipers. And so this is the day before a goal race or 2 days or whatever. And now you're having to track down parts and all this stuff. Whereas like on a rim brake, replace the cable.
Yeah, everyone's got cables.
Or
Or you may not even have the issue at all.
Or a pad.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 18 sets of pads laying around that I've collected over the years because I always put on nicer brake pads.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the big ones that people don't think about when it comes to disc versus rim brake is the ease of a wheel change. So if you're out there and you get a flat, like it's going to take you much longer to get the wheel off. Mm-hmm. You have to carry an extra tool if you don't have if your skewers are not already have like the whatever screwy thing on there. Mm-hmm. You have to carry a tool to get those off.
Yep.
It's just a little bit more work to change a flat. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're if you're on a road disc, you might as well just forget about it. I mean, in a road race, just forget about it.
Oh, exactly. You're not in a road race.
Now they're just giving you bikes.
Unless you've got, exactly. Unless you got a team car with a bike, that they can just give you a new one.
They stopped doing wheel changes when disc brakes came out. Yep. They just carry extra bikes.
It's a brand new bike. Yep.
So that's something. One more thing to consider on disc versus rim. What are all of your other wheels?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
What is everything else you have?
Yeah, if you have to replace everything.
Yeah.
If you've got the rim brake set up on all your other wheel sets.
If you have a rim brake set up for your race wheels, your disc, your everything else, and now you're going to go to disc brakes, you can't just swap those.
Yeah.
You're going to need little pain train.
Pain train coming. I don't think they're going to hear it. It didn't buzz them.
Yeah. You're going to have to replace all that stuff.
Yep.
You got to get new, you can't just switch like a hub that easily.
Yeah.
So
if you're doing this on a budget, you're not.
Yeah. If you're
not looking at that.
If you're trying on a budget, you should probably.
You're looking at one wheel set, and then you're going to do one of the disc covers in the back. Good to go.
Yeah, disc cover. Yeah. Yeah.
Or the wheel cover.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are like the big three kind of like considerations that will really help narrow down what models you're looking at. Mm-hmm. That's a lot more than three considerations, but 3 categories of considerations.
Yeah. Personally, for me, on a triathlon TT time trial specific bike, I'm going rim. Yeah,
me too. And personally, I don't want the braking power.
I ain't trying to stop.
I don't want the braking power. Mainly because, I think about dismounting, right? You're dismounting the bike, and you already have all your weight on the front of the bike. You grab a little bit too much of that disc brake, and that back end is coming up.
Yeah.
Or you're going into a turn, and you're trying to rail this turn, and I like to feather the brakes into the turn, let go of the brakes.
That's why we call you Birdman.
Yeah, that's
all feathers.
I don't know. I'm a rim breaker on a TT bike. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I love my disc brakes on my gravel bike and on the road even. But TT, I'm going rim still.
Last one. Electronic versus mechanical on the shifting.
That could be that's a consideration as well, but always go electric if you can afford it. You'll never go back.
Yeah, I was actually just having a conversation. This relating a little more to time trialing, but the start, standing, getting up to speed, just your ability to shift without having to sit down and go to center. Go back to your wings. Just the ability to do that has been so worth it. And if you're someone who wants to train a lot on your bike, it's going to be safer to be able to shift from those wings as well. When you're out riding, through town, maybe not aero, because you have access to your shifters and your brakes in the same spot. So just from a safety standpoint. So if you're trying to sell it to your significant other, safety first.
For
safety
sure.
Always.
Yeah, the ability to shift from those bull horns is really nice. Less technically, could be less wires, could be less whatever.
Yeah, a little more aero.
Thinking aerodynamics and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Much more aero benefit than disc brakes, but you know, so yeah, electric drivetrain. Now, getting to like the must-haves, you've kind of narrowed it down a bit. These must-haves are going to probably narrow it down a lot more, because I have seen bikes that have them and bikes that don't have these things or have very limited amounts of these things. And so I would personally never buy a time trial bike without having all of these. So the first of which is a lot of fore and aft movement on the pads. We're focusing on the pads, right? Because that's where your body makes contact with the bike. It is a very different spot of contact. Keep that in consideration. It's not our hands anymore that are making contact with the bike, like making the most contact. It's basically our elbow or forearm area. So those pads are the most important. Where their position is the most important thing. So lots of fore and aft movement, like in the pad. So that means closer to the wheel or closer to the saddle. A lot of movement there, because you need to be able to feel out different shoulder angles, and that's like one of the major, especially if you get like an integrated bike where the stem is the stem, like the length. It's like even some of the really nice integrated ones, you may only get one or three tops choices on the length of a stem. And if you're like me and you're much more torso than you are inseam, a lot of times everything ends up being too short. It's way too short. And if you can't lengthen that out, you're never going to get comfortable. So we have to have a lot of movement in the pads, especially if it's going to be a integrated stem, where it's going to be very hard to change the length of the bike by the stem.
Yep.
So lots of fore and aft movement. Second, almost more important, is lots of spacers to stack under the pads. If you've paid any attention to like pro Peloton, pro triathlon, what you're going to notice more is massive stack under the pads and keeping the bull horns level with the top tube. So a little bit more aero there, but you get the comfort because your arms are now in the right place where you can relax your shoulders and all that good stuff. So what I'm running into a lot is that it's either the bike does not come with a spacer kit, or the shop forgot to give it to somebody. But I would never, ever, ever buy a time trial bike or a triathlon bike that didn't come with a spacer kit. Or at very least, somebody doesn't make an aftermarket kit that you can find before you buy the bike for that bike.
So if someone's brand new, would you recommend they get a bike where you can actually change the stem as well?
Yeah. I mean,
because that gives you even more variability in how far out, how far up, how far down.
I don't want to necessarily sway. If you really want one of the nice super bikes that's all integrated and aero, like great. As long as it's got these things, you should be okay as long as you get the right size, which we'll kind of get into. And
it goes back to that statement I made a little bit ago. Like, your position on the bike is going to be more important than having a super bike versus...
Yes, 100%. I mean, I have gone away from the fancy integrated super bike to a bike that's more regular stem-based. So I can completely change the front end up if I want. I can lengthen it, shorten it, raise it, lower it by the stem and by the pad movement.
And the spacers.
So I can go up and down on the pad stack. I can go up and down the stem. I can go out on the stem. I can go in on the stem, in and out on the pads. Like, there is superior adjustability in the front end of a bike that is based on regular stems. So I have gone that route. But if you have all of these things, so fore and aft movement, lots of pad stack, And then the last one, which surprises the hell out of me every time I see a bike that doesn't have it, is ability to tilt.
Yep. Like
if there's no like tilt in the pads or the bars or whatever, that is a missing. It's a big hole there in your comfort. Because I have found that as you tilt the bars, and there's a diminishing returns here, but as you tilt the bars, your shoulders relax a whole lot more. Your lats disengage. It allows people to breathe better. Like,
and you're closing that hole down in front of your body.
You're bringing your hands higher in front of your face, and you're closing that space. So if there's no tilt, it a lot of times it just causes shoulders to never be able to relax unless you can get the pad height perfect. Like you can almost get away with a bike being more almost too aggressive if you can tilt them because it helps relax the shoulders so much. Now that's not to say it won't affect their ability to create power, but it's gonna allow them to be more comfortable. And realistically, it's the name of the game when you're doing triathlon, especially long course. So, fore and aft pad stack and tilt. And the fourth bonus one is your ability to change out the bar extensions. And so like some of them, most of them can be, but if you're on a more integrated bike, you probably get one option as far as like extension shape. And then that's it. But again, if you want tilt and you want your hands higher in front of your face, you got to be able to change out those extensions unless they come with, a pretty severe degree bend extension. You call them J bends or whatever you want to call them. Okay, so you got your model now. After all that work, you've picked out the model. The huge key is to get the right size. Like you cannot physically, like especially if you're going integrated and super bike, it's so hard to lengthen and shorten those bikes. When you get on the wrong size, you're destined to like struggle with comfort. So
if you listen to all of Dale's must-haves that you just stated, you've got more tolerance. You don't have to be perfect necessarily, and hopefully your body fits those size jumps that a manufacturer does.
You always have to consider that these bike manufacturers are trying to fit 1 million infinity blah 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 type of bodies into most of the time trial bikes 4 sizes, 4 or 5 sizes. And so that's what surprises me about the limitation on adjustability. When there's only 4 or 5 sizes, like these things should be as adjustable as possible. If you like, I don't know.
Being able to put the body different places in space, both back end and front end.
And the thing is not everybody is like, most people are one size if you measure them from the inseam, or just take their height, and then a whole different size if you measure them basically from the waist up. And so kind of one thing I would say is if you go in and a shop doesn't measure you, don't buy from that shop. If they don't offer to like take measurements on your body, skip it, because there's a fair chance that you're going to get the wrong size. If they're just trying to sell you something that's on the floor, at least make sure that it's the right size before you buy it. Because getting the right size is going to be the limiter on your comfort. So make sure you get measured. And then just some people will ask me, like, can you, like, here's what size I am on a road bike. Can you tell me what I need on a time trial bike? And usually the answer is no, because it's a different contact point, like for the bike. So the length of the bike, the reach, so to speak, of the bike is completely different. So whereas you might be a 54 on a road bike, but that road bike had a, like a 120 or 130 stem, but you're considering reach as to the reach of your hands. Well, your reach is now only to your forearm and your elbow now, and so your reach is really limited to torso length and a little bit of shoulder angle. So just taking a guess off of that without taking some measurements it's rolling the dice. So just have them take some measurements off you and cross-reference the geometry. And there's a couple of pretty good like reference sites out there. Geometry Geeks is one, and then Velogic Fit is another one where you can actually compare. You can kind of take measurements. I think that one's a paid service, but you can compare geometries of different frames and get an actual like reach measurement to the pad. And that way you can kind of, especially if you have a time trial bike already, you can take a reach measurement to your pad and kind of get that and see if it's even close, if you can get in that range. But it's just really hard. It's just really hard to pick that size out of a road bike, like sizing.
Fit, yeah.
And a lot of times too, it's like, well, I ride a 54 road bike, but these sizes are like small, medium, large, or medium, large, and then large, extra large, and and the top tubes, even the top tube length is not really totally relevant because that's not determining where the pads are. It'll get you maybe close, but there's still a huge range of variance in the stem length, the pad position, all that stuff
across the different
when it comes to the actual reach of the pads.
Yeah.
So do some, work with the shop to get an idea of what kind of stack and reach you would need kind of before purchasing.
Yes. It was kind of tough right now. Like for a while, you could actually go into a shop and they'd have the different models available. So you could actually get on the bike and get a feel for it. But, right now it's very limited across the board as far as I know. Your ability to go in and actually sit on the bike ahead of time. Yeah.
Part of it's just the availability of bikes is low, but I think a lot of shops just don't carry a high
as many
volume of tri bikes because they're expensive, But one of the things, for the average age grouper, I would say.
So is this average
for the average
person finishing with an average time?
No, I'm just saying the average person in triathlon.
Okay.
You would probably be better off sizing based on your torso length than your standover or your overall height. Because if you are super tall, but you have a short torso, you could end up being put on a bike that's way too long for you.
Way too big, yeah.
But if you're like short, like myself, and you have really long torso, you can almost always end up on a bike that is too short for you. And with integrated parts, you're very limited on the length range the reach range that you can obtain. And I have had a number of people, and I won't say the company, but use their sizing recommendation calculator or whatever based on their own measurements and come out with a bike that's way too small. So do some of your own homework on the sizing, but if you need, it's worth getting like professional help prior to purchase if you're worried about
something fitting or not, and you're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on it.
Right. Correct. But I've found more now, like in a case where even if you do go on a bigger size, for the average person, that's okay because it's going to make the front end less aggressive. Mm-hmm. And if you're still within the range of your torso, then you're going to be fine comfort wise. Yeah. It's not going to be a limitation of getting it low enough. Mm-hmm. Usually it's a problem of getting it high enough. And then occasionally you can run into, like, if you do go based on torso length, if you are very long torso, you could end up possibly not being able to get the seat low enough. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a lot more rare than people ending up on bikes that are too long or too short for them. Mm-hmm. So that's my opinion. Somebody might argue with me on that, but I don't care. So that's kind of like the big things on like picking the right size. And like, if you're local, we can help you pick the right size. Yeah. We have a service that basically take measurements off your body, and we do the investigating as far as sizing goes. But some of the other things that are pretty important to your overall setup, like accessories and whatnot, like your saddle. In my opinion, most people who are going to be on a triathlon bike should probably just go ahead and get a split nose saddle, call it a day, and get it right away, just so that you can work it into the initial fitting, initial position. Like, just based on the type of positioning on a triathlon bike, you are not going to be on your sit bones, like, at all, really. Mm-hmm. You're going to be on your pubic bones. And so having a normal road saddle or something like that on there is not going to offer the support that you need to maintain that tilted position for hours and hours and hours. Mm-hmm. So I would say make sure you get a split nose. In the long run, you're going to be happier, and just get it right away. Hydration. It could be something that you're like really like sways your, like, the type of bike you have, because several of the new like tri-specific bikes have like built-in hydration. Mm-hmm. and stuff like that. Yep. But if you're going to use like a hydration system, I would wait to buy that until you have your position dialed in, because the position of your bars, like the width of them, where they are in space, all that good stuff will affect what hydration systems will fit. Mm-hmm.
Even your frame size.
Yeah, frame size. Like, a lot of small frames only have one bottle cage. Yep. And so now you have to figure out how to carry more fluids, just the one bottle on your bike. Mm-hmm. Shout out to the Zafel Magnums. Zafel? I don't know how to say it.
Zafel?
It's French.
Zafel.
Zafel. Yeah. The Magnums, we've probably sold them thousands of bottles at this point. It's got to be
a lot. Just Memphis heat, there's a lot of people rolling around with those Zafel bottles.
Oh, yeah. So they're 1 liter bottles that fit in a regular bottle cage, which is awesome. Yep. So
actually, I see one right over there.
There is one over there. So wait till your fit is done and locked in before you figure out your hydration system. Yeah, I've made that mistake in the past. And then you just blow money on a front bottle or something like that won't actually fit. Mm-hmm. Wheels. So just real quick on wheels. Most people are like, what, we get asked what kind of wheels to get all the time. Look, if you're very serious about triathlon, a disc wheel is always going to reign supreme. Obviously, if you make it to Kona, you can't use it. But if you're looking for a set the 60-80 combo is usually the
60
universal
front, 80 rear. Yeah,
the universal set. So you got 60 mil depth in the front, 80 mil in the rear. That's a great universal set. But my big thing with wheels, and I think you're on the same page here, is hubs. Like, make sure you get nice hubs. Don't buy wheels because of the price unless they have nice hubs, and you know they have nice hubs. Because they can be light, they can be aero, but if they have crappy hubs, the rolling resistance or the resistance in that bearing is going to negate all of that special aero benefit and weight benefit.
Yeah, wheels are one of those things that you can swap from bike to bike. So it's not like, after a year or two, you want to upgrade your frame, go with the new latest and greatest. Typically, as far as wheel technology is concerned, you can go multiple years in general, buying one good quality set and then moving that to other bike frames as you go. So invest in something quality initially.
Yeah, absolutely. Last but not least is just make sure if you're gonna spend like thousands of bucks on a rocket ship bike, get the thing fit by a professional that you know and you trust and knows what they're doing. Because if somebody's just gonna look at you and just be like, it looks good. Or if
it's like, this is where your last bike was, so we'll just
make
it that.
Take
and you've never been fit on that previous bike.
Yeah. Or taking measurements from your road bike and trying to throw them onto a time trial bike. Like, just spend a couple $100, get the thing fit, and like, you will be so much happier on the bike. Otherwise, it turns into like, this is what happens. You stop riding the bike as much because it's not comfortable. And then you don't spend enough time on it leading into a race, and then you try to race it. And then it is uncomfortable for the entire race.
Because you haven't ridden it.
Because you haven't ridden it.
And because it's not fit right.
Correct. So if you're going to put the money, just budget another $300 for a fit, and you're going to be so much happier that you did that.
Yep. 100%.
All right. That's all I got.
I think we nailed it, man. I think...
Kilt it.
I think that covers it all.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys hanging out, listening, watching. We'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.
Adios.